I just came back from a fishing trip from one of those impossibly beautiful places with turquoise water, sun, sea. My kids had just cast out their line from the boat when, at the other end of it, something big. They were reeling it in and reeling it in. And finally, when we pulled this fish into the boat, they screamed. It had huge teeth. It was ugly. It was a barracuda. But the fisherman in this case said that he wanted to keep the fish. So I said, wait a minute. If you're keeping the fish, why don't we keep it? Take it back to the hotel. Maybe the chef can cook it for us. But the fisherman said, not allowed to do that. And I knew why. This was a medical mystery that was solved several years prior by a friend of mine. It was so interesting, as a matter of fact, that it made it into the New York Times. He was on call one night in the Bronx when a couple came in that had been to the Caribbean. About 3 or 4 days prior, they were in the Caribbean and had a nice fish dinner. And he got violently ill afterwards. Nausea, vomiting, headache, lethargy. The tips of his fingers he couldn't feel anymore. He could hardly walk. They got on a plane and came back and showed up in the emergency room in the Bronx. Now, nobody could figure out what was going on. The other physicians, they were thinking of quite a large differential diagnosis. My friend went in and started asking questions. One of the hallmarks was that the patient was very thirsty and kept on asking for water. My friend went out, filled a cup of water with ice and water, and gave it back to the patient. As soon as the patient took a sip, he screamed and complained that his mouth was burning, that it was scalding hot. My friend said, you have ice water. It's not hot. He says, no. It's completely hot. It feels as if you're giving me boiling hot tea. It's burning my mouth, my throat, my esophagus. That's when Dr. Ma solved the diagnosis. He knew what it was. It's called ciguatera poisoning. What happens in the Caribbean around coral reefs are these small microalgae, and they have a toxin in them. And herbivorous fish eat the algae. It builds up in their system, and eventually carnivorous fish, like the barracuda, eat them. Now it builds up inside the barracuda. It keeps on building up and building up and building up until the barracuda gets caught. Now, this toxin cannot get cooked out. So once the barracuda has enough of it, then you're going to eat it. And that's exactly what happened to this poor chap. He ended up getting ciguatera poisoning. Now, the diagnosis saved this poor man much testing and much sorrow. He was able to be treated appropriately, and he did very, very well, thanks to Dr. Ma. So, next time you're in the Caribbean, just be careful what fish you eat. If it's carnivorous, maybe you should pass on it. Let the professionals eat it. All the best.